Now, here's something that's almost going to be shocking, or not shocking at all, probably expected. The oligarch tax bracket, courtesy of Silver Doctors, how the tax rate for the wealthiest 400 Americans plunged. To discover the real players, the people who drive American domestic and foreign policy and make all the important decisions, you only need to focus on a handful of people. Submitted by Michael Krieger, Liberty Blitzkrieg. I never liked the saying, "We are the 99%." While admittedly catchy and effective as a slogan, I think it is ultimately divisive and counterproductive. The reason I say this is because the statement itself alienates much needed allies for no good reason. In a country with a population of 320 million, the 1% represents 3.2 million people, which he says is a pretty big number, and I will concur. While the 1% certainly have far superior material lives compared to the 99%, that doesn't mean a particularly large percentage of them are thieves, cronies, or oligarchs. In fact, it behooves people interested in transitioning to another paradigm to court as many of them as possible to the cause. It is very useful to have well-meaning people with resources and connections on your side. To blithely assume there aren't plenty of potential allies from a pool of 3.2 million people is committing strategic suicide, he says. And he says from the Post, charting the American oligarchy, how 0.01% of the population contributes 42% of all campaign cash. Now let's think about that for a second. Campaign contributions to politicians. Are you telling me 0.01 of the percent of the population contributes 42% of all campaign cash? That's what they're saying. Much of my focus throughout 2015 was on the pernicious influence of the 0.01%, not the 1%, i.e. the American oligarchy. Indeed, nothing would please oligarchs more than to define a struggle as the 99% versus the 1% in order to shift attention away from the real root of the problem, which is themselves. As I've mentioned time and time again, 99% of the 1% doesn't bribe politicians, write laws, or influence U.S. foreign policy. To discover the real players, the people who drive American domestic and foreign policy and make all the important decisions, you only need to focus on a handful of people. Today, the New York Times published, and this may not have been today exactly, this is a few days ago, the New York Times published an important article that proves the point. Here are the key paragraphs in the entire lengthy article. And it's just 2 paragraphs. The impact on their own fortunes has been stark. 2 decades ago, when Bill Clinton was elected president, the 400 highest earning taxpayers in America paid nearly 27% of their income in federal taxes, according to IRS data. Now that's, in and of itself, odd to me. Even then, I don't know what kind of point they're trying to make. Income tax bracket. And this one comes up, it looks like 2014 tax brackets, but I'm sure it's similar over the years, right? Somewhat similar. And there is just to give you an idea, this said 27%. Okay? 25%, and I'm going to use the best scenario here. So married, filing jointly, you could make between $73,000 and $148,000 roughly. You would be in the 25% tax bracket. The 28% tax bracket is $148,000 to $226,000. 33%, $226,400 to $405,000. 35%, $405,000 to $457,000, and 39.6%, you are, if you make $459,000 or more, so $500,000 or more annually, you're in the 39.6%. Now, I want you to think about that for 1 second. We're talking about the 0.01% population, people. You might even include the 1%ers, okay? The bottom line is that even literally the 1%ers, the 3 point whatever million people it talked about, you know they're making way more than $500,000 a year, right? Which would mean that the 0.01%, without question, are making more than $500,000 a year. These guys are making billions. Therefore, because that's the last of the chart, they should be at 39.6% income tax. So my question is right off the bat, well, he says when Bill Clinton was elected president, the 400 highest earning, so the 400 highest earning, that's that 0.00, 1%, paid nearly 27%. My question is, how could they even pay 27%? Why isn't theirs 39 or 30-something percent? They had already had laws in little pieces added or removed from the IRS tax code that enabled them to skate those higher taxes, guaranteed. That's how it always is. So it says that's according to IRS data. By 2012, when President Obama was reelected, that figure had fallen to less than 17% from 27, which is just slightly more than the typical family making $100,000 annually when payroll taxes are included for both groups. And in the next paragraph, from Mr. Obama's inauguration through the end of 2012, federal income tax rates on individuals did not change, excluding payroll taxes, but the highest earning 1,000th of Americans went from the paying of an average of 20.9% to 17.6%. By contrast, the top 1%, excluding the very wealthy, went from paying just under 24% on average to just over that level. So just under 24% to just a hair over 24%. But that's not the 0.01%. They got the super duper discount. He said, and then back to the main article, this is merely a reflection of what I've been saying throughout the Obama presidency, that he is nothing more than an oligarch coddling puppet masquerading as a progressive. And I'm going to add something else too, because someone commented on my Webbot summary video today and said, hey, I don't know where this came from, but said Google FDA, head of FDA. And the first choice is Pedorovo.com, Monsanto exec heads FDA. Right? Monsanto exec heads FDA and the Obama administration's revolving door politics. So I'm just going to briefly read you a little bit of this because this ties into that. What it would probably look like if all the former Monsanto employees now employed... Oh, he just added a facial thing. Despite their animus history, Barack Obama seems to be warming to the K Street corporate lobbyist he once had adamantly denounced. In 2009, in a classic revolving door move, President Obama appointed former Monsanto vice president and head lobbyist Michael Taylor as deputy commissioner for the FDA, the board tasked with regulating Taylor's own industry, which would be Monsanto and their genetically modified seed growing stuff and their Roundup ready crop stuff, right? That all goes through the FDA. From the poisonous stuff, literally poisons and spraying crops, to the seeds, the food, it's all FDA handled. So you've got someone who was a vice president level, Monsanto vice president and head lobbyist, Michael Taylor, was chosen to be deputy commissioner for the FDA. Also worth noting how many dimes Obama has already accepted from Washington lobbyists for his 2012 campaign, more than 14,000 to be exact. So That kind of goes in, right? The oligarchs, that's the same kind of thing here. Now they've got their own oligarch in charge of the FDA. Who's going to sell it? FDA approved, FDA approved. Now you know why. All these years now, you see these commercials come on TV. Cordyceps and Sudocep and Bozosec. Are you feeling, down and out of your luck and depressed? Try some Bozosec. FDA approved. And then 2-3 years goes by. Lawsuit advertisement. Did you take Bozosec? There's a class action. You may be entitled to compensation. Call the law offices of so-and-so. It's been pulled off the market now. Well, they know this. It's part of their business plan. They know it's going to last 2 or 3 years. They're going to make billions and billions of dollars. They'll settle the lawsuits for pennies on the dollar. Rinse and repeat. And when you got one of your head guys, former vice president of your company, allowing all this new stuff to come through because he's part of the club, and all club members come on through this special door right over here. Everything you guys bring us is FDA approved. That fits in with this same kind of crap. So, back down to where I was. This is merely a reflection of what I've been saying about throughout the Obama presidency, that he is nothing more than an oligarch coddling puppet masquerading as a progressive. As you can see, tax rates for the non-oligarch 1% actually went up. Just a hair, but went up during his presidency. While oligarch tax rates didn't decline a hair, declined substantially. This is precisely what Obama will be remembered for by history, bailing out and protecting the 0.01% at the expense of everyone else, as usual. We need to grow up and understand the battle lines clearly in order to win. It is demonstrably not the 99% versus the 1%. In reality, it's the oligarchy and the system they created versus everybody else. I suggest you read the entire article, but here are a few more compelling segments. He says, with inequality at its highest levels in nearly a century, and public debate rising over whether the government should respond to it through higher taxes on the wealthy, the very richest Americans have financed a sophisticated and astonishingly effective apparatus for shielding their fortunes. Some call it the income defense industry, consisting of a highly priced phalanx of lawyers, estate planners, lobbyists, and anti-tax activists who exploit and defend a dizzying array of tax maneuvers, virtually none of them available to taxpayers of more modest means. In recent years, this apparatus has become one of the most powerful avenues of influence for wealthy Americans of all political stripes, including Mr. Loeb and Mr. Cohen, who give heavily to Republicans and the liberal billionaire George Soros, who has called for higher levies on the rich, while at the same time using tax loopholes to bolster his own fortune. Oh, he was one of the ones calling for the higher taxes on that 1%, but not the 0.01%, like he is in. All are among a small group providing much of the early cash for the 2016 presidential campaign, operating largely out of public view in a tax court through arcane legislative provisions and in private negotiations with the IRS. The wealthy have used their influence to steadily whittle away at the government's ability to tax them. The effect has been to create a kind of private tax system catering to only several thousand Americans. The impact on this or on their own fortunes has been stark. 2 decades ago, when Bill Clinton was elected president, the 400 highest earning taxpayers in America paid nearly 27% of their income in federal taxes, according to IRS data. By 2012, when President Obama was reelected, that figure had fallen to less than 17%. From Mr. Obama's inauguration through the end of 2012, federal income tax rates on individuals did not change, excluding payroll taxes, but the highest earning 1,000th of Americans went from paying an average of 20.9% to just 17.6%. By contrast, the top 1%, excluding the very wealthy, went from paying just under 24% on average to just over that level, as I have just mentioned. So there you have it. The rich, as the old saying goes, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And I'm going to add a new one now. And the middle class becomes the poor. So there won't be a middle class. They'll just be rich and poor. They'll be wealthy and everybody else. Proud to be an American. Fight for the rights of every man. I feel like a zombie. I get into zombie mode when I sing that. Oh my God. I'm a sheep. And how many people are out there just blowing money through stuff? Oh, it's time. I'm tired of my old car. Time for a new car. Brand new. Brand new. Like go to the dealership new. Yeah, but you have a lot of other things, debt, and God forbid if you lost your job or had to take a lower paying job. Oh, wow, that'll never happen. Magic 8 Ball. Is it possible that that could in fact happen? It is certain. See? You can never go wrong asking Magic 8 Ball. Never. I'd have a show just on Magic 8 Ball. Whole Magic 8 Ball channel. Take care.